How you doing, everybody? Listen, it's Tuesday, it's the 21st of December 2010, and it's kind of getting late on in the afternoon. The sun's gone down there and it's starting to snow outside here, and anyway, I hope everybody just stays well and stays warm. Listen, I want to talk about we have a management agency here in Ireland, a government sponsored agency. It's called NTMA, and I just want to talk about them. And the reason I want to talk about them is over the last months, at the end of November, they put out basically a write-up about what they were doing. They're not a detailed set of accounts or anything like that. They don't do that. But anyway, NAMA's headed up by, it's a toxic bank. Now, in case anybody doesn't know, NAMA's a toxic bank. And it was set up 2 years ago, in 2008, by our government. And then they brought it into being essentially in 2009, and since the end of 2009 up through this year, they've been buying toxic debt, property debt from our banks, and just basically taking it off the bank's books. And inside the statement from NAMA, I'll put a link up to it, you can have a read of it. NAMA's headed up by two men. The chairman is a fellow called Frank Daly. He's an ex-revenue commissioner here in Ireland, and big friend of the banks, big buddy of the banks is Mr. Frank. And then we have another fellow called McDonagh, and he's the CEO of NAMA. And these are the boys. NAMA is an adjunct. It's a part of the National Treasury Management Agency, and they're like financial hitmen that work for the state. And what they do is they invest our pension fund, the state pension funds, and they look after state borrowings and do various things like that. Okay, they have 4 or 5 key things that they do, but that's the 2 main things that they do. They look after our day-to-day borrowing. They won't be doing that for a while because we can't go to the bond markets anymore, but they do that. And then on top of that, they do the medium and long-term borrowing, and they look after the pension, the various state pension funds, how they're invested and whatever. Okay, now the National Treasury Management Agency and everything about it is a closely guarded secret. As I say, they're like financial Gestapo. Nobody knows anything about it. It's like a secret police, like a political police. No one knows anything about them. The main reason being that they're paid colossal sums of money as public servants. They're paid huge sums of money, and they get massive bonuses. We have it on record that several of them from within the National Treasury Management Agency last year earned well in excess of a million euros for 1 year's work. Okay, so they get a colossal salary and then they get a big bonus at the end of every year, and they've got fantastic pensions and all the rest of it. These are a class apart. These fellas make ministers look like idiots in terms of how much money they earn. Okay, these boys, like, they're millionaires. Anyway, McDonagh, who is their chief executive, their CEO, he's the guy that does the administration of it every day. He made a statement there in the end of November. Put a link up to it, you can have a read of it. And he tells us that over the last year, they've given out 31 billion. They've bought contracts worth 31 billion from the banks, and that represents a book value of 78 billion. So that works out at something like they give a discount of 58% of the book value. So in other words, let's say for instance something was valued at 100 million on the bank's books, they give them 42 million. Okay, just to keep it simple so we can understand what we're talking about. Now, I really only want to talk about 2 things, and what I want to talk about is, that seems like, if you think about it, if someone said that to you, you'd think, well, that's not bad, they got a good discount off what would seemingly be, poor assets and all the rest of it, and that sounds all very, very reasonable. And then what I've done is I put a link up to ghost estates all over Ireland, and there are hundreds of these all over Ireland, and these are estates which are half finished, half completed, and the residential estates and commercial estates. The ones I've put up are mostly residential ones, but there are hundreds of these, and they represent billions upon billions. Now, these are things that NAMA gave 42 euros in every 100 42 cents in every euro they paid for these things. These things are not worth a light. They're not worth zilch. And I'll explain that to you in a second or two. First of all, the only thing NAMA can do with them is either complete them. They've a couple of options. They can complete them, leave them the way they are, which obviously they can't do that because they'll just be wrecked, or level them and sell it off as agricultural land. So those are the three options that they have. Okay, so what they've bought is, it's commonly called a pig in a poke. That's what they've bought. And they paid 42 cents in the euro for this stuff. And billions upon billions of it is gone. It's gone. May as well go down and throw it into the Liffey or throw it in any of the Irish rivers. Gone. Now people say, what sort of money? We got that money from the Europeans. Yeah, we got the money from the European Central Bank, and the money was conditional on that the European Central Bank would be paid in full. So we're responsible as the Irish people for any losses. Now last year, NAMA bought up 31 billion of these property loans and property contracts, all right, from the banks. And they're going to buy another 17 billion. Okay. Now, we've discussed it before, and just in case I put another link up to that, you can have a look at it. It's called NAMA Wine Lake, and it lists the 230 people who make up NAMA. So 230 people were able to borrow 78,000 million euros from our banks. Not thousands of people, 230 people. They're listed all in NAMA, in the NAMA Wine Lake site. You can put a link to that, you can have a look at that. Okay. So NAMA has bought all these ghost estates. I'll put a little link up to that, you can have a look at that. Okay. And they're all over Ireland, and they're not worth the paper they're written on. But there's another aspect of this whole business. There's another aspect of this whole business. And it only came out when our European friends arrived here a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and saw, listen to this, and examined the books and examined the contracts that our banks had entered into to buy the speculative property and fund this property speculation that went on in Ireland for the last couple of years. Well, for the last 10 years, 12 years. And they were appalled. These guys now would be the brightest of the bright. These boys would all have attended the likes of the Sorbonne and whatever. They'd all be very, very bright cookies. And they'd know immediately by looking at it. Listen to this. Just listen to this. This is unbelievable. Imagine many of the contracts that were signed by our banks to buy land, to buy property in this state, to speculate. So property speculators go and buy the land. The people who were selling the land put caveats into the contracts so that the title could not pass from them until the contract was finished, until the development was completed. So it wasn't a case of a speculator just going along and buying a piece of property off somebody. Oh no. Oh no. What happened was the person who was selling the property, he only sold an option. That's what he was selling. And this is all over Ireland. On thousands of these contracts that these banks have that we're now going to be paying 42 cents on the euro with. These are not worth the paper they're written on.